What happens when the thing you've barely dared to dream for actually comes true? How does it change you when what you've been believing for and almost given up hope on finally becomes reality? The Redefining Possible podcast spotlights guests with stories of insurmountable odds who have witnessed the impossible become possible with God. Welcome to Redefining Possible. I'm your host, Peyton Hoffman, and with me today is Diana Orozco, beauty influencer and self-care expert. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure for you to be here. Thank you for joining us today. Take me to really just how your passion for self-care and women's health holistically, physical, emotional, spiritual, how all of that unfolded for you.
I would say it definitely all started at a young age. I struggled a lot with chronic anxiety and panic disorder. So growing up, it just got to a point where I felt like I was pretty much stuck in that mindset. And I just kind of started to question, would I ever get better? Is there anything more to my life other than just that anxiety and that constant panic that felt like it was just happening day after day?
Wow. And for you, was there ever a moment, you said this was happening when you were a young child, but it also happened, I think, as you were growing up. We were discussing that earlier. And, what was that like for you? Was there ever a moment where you just were like, I don't know how to deal with this? You've reached kind of the end of yourself and just thought, am I going to get better? How is this going to be possible for me to be well?
I think it had gotten to the point where I ended up going to the hospital a few times. It was just like same day, same discharge when I would be admitted, but I was never there for multiple days. But I just remember there was a point in my life where I was just going to the hospital or urgent care, just whichever one I had access to. And anybody with anxiety or panic disorder, I'm sure can relate that anytime you're feeling this, you feel like it's a true emergency. It becomes hard to know, is this an actual emergency or is this just anxiety? Because it gets to the point where you're feeling like that. And I remember I had gone to the hospital and they had to give me a medication. I don't remember what it's called, but just to help relax me. I ended up going to urgent care. I would end up seeing other specialists because I just felt like there was just something wrong with me constantly. Even though the doctors, I would do my physical, my lab work, and they would tell me, everything is fine, but I still felt like I wasn't fine. And I remember there was this point where I went to the hospital and I don't remember what the reason was for at that time, but there was this woman next to me with a curtain, and it was just like one of those rooms where they kind of separated the rooms with a curtain just for privacy. And I remember talking to the doctor and I mentioned something about having a history of anxiety. And right after she walked out to get me my discharge paperwork, there was this woman on the other side of the curtain and she kind of called out to me, and then she's like, excuse me, and she's like, I don't mean to eavesdrop. And she was like, I heard you mention that you have anxiety. And we were just talking behind the curtains, and she told me, she's like, I'm here for the exact same reason.
Wow.
And she's like, do you mind if I open the curtain? Like, I want to see you. So I told her, like, yeah, go ahead. She opened the curtain, and me and her were looking at each other, and we were just talking. Wow. And then, like, the doctor came in. She's like, oh, you guys met. And I think shortly after that, she was still going to stay a little bit longer, and I was going to be discharged. So she asked me, she's like, can I get your number? So we exchanged numbers at that point, and then I told her, like, text me whenever you're able to. Yeah. She ended up texting me, and then me and her just kept in contact for a while. Wow. She lives within the area, so we did meet up a few times for lunch. Goodness. We would text each other randomly, like, hey, how are you? How's your mental health doing? Wow. And it just felt really good to have somebody else that can relate to you. Yeah. So I think at that point, that's when I started seeing just a little bit of hope, because I no longer felt alone. This whole time, I felt like I was going through this journey by myself. I felt like nobody else was going through what I was going through. You just feel so alone, and it gets to a point where you just feel like you're going crazy. And you don't feel comfortable bringing this up to other people because they're going to be like, oh, it's just anxiety. It's just anxiety. Just don't think about it. And a lot of people I feel like they just don't really see it for what it is. And they just kind of yeah, not really pay much attention to it. But I would say at that point, that's where I started seeing a little bit of hope, because I started seeing I'm not the only one that's going through this.
Yeah, I think you just hit on something really important, because there are so many people, men and women, that struggle with anxiety or, panic attacks, anxiety attacks. And, you mentioned something about, hey, I just felt alone, like meeting this woman in the hospital made me not feel as alone anymore. Describe what that's like, to someone, to an audience that maybe hasn't struggled with this or is just trying to really understand this better. When something like that happens, you said, you're trying to figure out what's really an emergency and what's not. But maybe unpack that a little bit more in terms of just, did you have community around yourself at the time? Did you have people trying to help? What was it specifically that kind of made you feel alone in that moment?
Yeah, so shortly after that, I started going to therapy. I ended up seeing maybe like about 5 or 6 different therapists. Some of the therapists I was in, their contracts didn't end up working with my health insurance, or maybe the therapists moved jobs, and other, etc. So I ended up going to new therapists, and it just gets exhausting just talking about your story over and over. But shortly after that, when I was seeing my therapist, she encouraged me. She's like, you need to get out and do things. Go to the gym, go to church, go out to a community. So I slowly started to put myself out there. I do go to the gym pretty frequently. And I felt that anytime I was at the gym, I didn't feel like I had anxiety.
Wow.
But then when I would come home, my anxiety would come back. So I was like, I need to get out of the house more. Maybe I need that community. I started going to church. I started putting myself more out there. I went to actually an event with our friend Rachel in LA. So I remember, so I do a lot of social media on the side, and I get invited to like makeup events and all of that. I got this random email from her team for like a meditation and like a prayer event. And I remember just looking at it and be like, how did she find me? I was like, my content is all beauty, it's all makeup. I don't know how her team even found me. So I was thinking whether or not I should go, because like this is out of the ordinary. And I just felt like this tug in my heart that I should go. I should try it out. And I felt like if I didn't go, that I would regret it at some point. But I reached out to some friends, and nobody was able to go with me. And LA's a little further out, and it's like about an hour drive or so. And I didn't really want to drive to LA all the way by myself with the traffic, the parking and everything. And the day came, and I was like, okay, either I go or I don't go, but it's going to be by myself. I'm most likely not going to know anybody. And I just remember just thinking that I'm just going to go. By the time I was driving here, I was just praying in my car, and I was asking God, I was like, please, like, I'm here by myself. If I'm just going to be by myself the whole event, that's fine. I'm coming for myself and for God, not for anybody else. And then I was asking God to please just give me a really good parking spot. And as soon as I got there pretty early, because parking is hectic. You never know if you're going to find parking or anything. And I ended up finding a parking spot right across the street from the event. It was the only one that was open. Everything else was packed.
Which is amazing, because that area, this was in Hollywood, and that area just of the city is really, really crazy to find parking in. So that's amazing.
So I ended up parking there, of course, and then I was like, okay, this is easy. But then there was that whole thing where I'm probably going to be by myself. And I remember just going to the event, and I just sat down in the corner. And then a few women actually came up to me and approached me. This other woman from the event, I think this was about a year ago, but me and her actually still keep in contact. So whenever we go to Rachel's events, me and her actually text each other and we meet up.
So great.
So it was just, I don't know, anytime I go to any event now, God always brings other people to me. And I was talking to a friend about it, but I felt like this situation happened to give me more courage. To have me be able to go to events by myself. I've been meeting a lot of people, meeting new friends, and I've been surrounding myself with that positive community. We've been praying for each other, and I noticed just when you have that community, that those friendships are just so authentic and genuine, and these are people that just want the best for you.
It's very life-giving.
Exactly.
And you mentioned that you do social media as well. And so being kind of being a beauty influencer, when you were kind of going through this time of the hospitals and therapy and stuff not really working, what were people seeing online? Were they seeing that, or was it, oh, life is good and things are great? And I'm just curious because I know there are so many filters that we put out there on social media just as a public. And I was curious, like, how did that impact what you put online, or was that just, oh, I need to be able to handle this separately? Like, did you compartmentalize or what?
Yeah, I've been posting more about just like my life in general. Anytime I find any type of like prayers or motivational quotes, I like reposting them. When I would go to maybe events or so and I would talk to other people, I would find that we kind of have that conversation about God and faith. And I've been having a lot of people just message me telling me like, thank you so much for your post, like your quotes, anything that you're posting, because they find my content more motivational versus just beauty. Because I feel like when people see what I used to post before, just the makeup, the beauty, the videos and all of that, people would probably thought like, oh, she has this great life, no issues, no mental health struggles. But behind the camera, I was struggling a lot. And I was like, no, people need to see this, especially nowadays. Like mental health, I feel, is like a really big topic now.
It is, it is. And I actually want to touch on that a little bit more right when we come back. We'll be back in just a minute with more from Diana Orozco on Redefining Possible. Welcome back to Redefining Possible. I'm your host, Peyton Hoffman, and here with me today is Diana Orozco. Right before the break, we were talking a bit about the importance of mental health. And what I really love that you mentioned was how people would look on your social media and follow you for beauty advice and beauty tips. And behind the scenes, you were really struggling, and people didn't necessarily know that. And you talked about how you're starting to be more transparent just with social media, what you're posting, how you're encouraging people, and your story. Tell us a little bit about just that healing transformation that happened. Before the break, we were talking about, being in the hospital, really struggling with this, and to look at you now and talk to you, you're beautiful, and you have really just come so far, and the Lord's brought you so far. So tell us a little bit about when things changed and how things changed for you.
Yeah, so right after I went to that event with Rachel, I've just been having just these crazy things just happening to me. Of course, all from God. I went to a book signing also in LA a few months back. And it was on these two women who also have a faith-based podcast. And they came out with a book. They were doing a book signing. So my friend and I really wanted to go. And we ended up going. And it's funny because when we went, we really wanted to sit in the front row, but the front row was reserved.
Right.
So we kind of sat like towards the back in the middle. And I spotted these two chairs in the corner. So I told my friend, I was like, hey, I don't think those two chairs in the corner are taken. So we asked the women if anybody was sitting there. They're like, no, it's free, go ahead. So we sat in the front in the corner. And I told my friend, I think I was meant to sit in that corner for a reason. Because later on during that event, they had like a Q&A event. And I'm not the type of person to like speak through a mic. It's actually a miracle that I'm even in a show right now, but I'm not that type of person. I'm typically really reserved and quiet. So I had a very vulnerable question that I wanted to ask. At some point in my life, I didn't want to be here anymore. And I wanted to ask something related to that. But I was just too shy to ask that, and I was just going to ask a generic question. And then I just felt like I had to ask that question. And I just remember just telling myself in my head, God, if you want me to ask this vulnerable question, let them pick me from the audience. And I was sitting in the front, all the way in the corner. All the girls in the middle were raising their hands. There was about 150 women there.
Wow.
So, all the women were, most of the women were raising their hands to ask a question. Right. I was like, what are the odds they're going to see me in the corner? And they were like, okay, one more question, and then we're going to do the book signing. So I rose my hand. Some other women raised their hand. I didn't get picked, so I was like, okay, maybe I'm not meant to ask this. And then the girls, they were like, no, let's do one more last question. Wow. So I was like, okay, I'm going to raise my hand, my last attempt. I rose my hand. Both of the girls turned to me and they looked at me and they're like, they picked me. So I asked my question, and it was a very vulnerable question, of course. I broke down mid-sentence. Both of the girls got up and they came up to me. One of the girls was holding my hands. She was on her knees in front of me. The other one had her hand on my head. And they gave me the mic, like, do you mind saying it again? Because other girls here might relate to you.
Yeah.
So I asked my question again, and they had two pastor friends. Both of them ran up to me as well. And then they told me, they're like, can we tell you what we saw? So I was like, yeah, go ahead. So one of the pastors told me, he's like, when you were sitting here in the audience, God highlighted you out of everybody here. He wanted you to ask this question. And then he told me, he's like, we see you on a mountain. And the other pastor told me that he saw me dressed as a farmer, rowing and seeping seeds on the ground. And he told me, he's like, be patient. It's gonna harvest.
Yeah.
They also told me that they see God blessing my future plans and projects, and that they see him healing my heart. And I was telling my friend, this overall was really healing. Somebody was praying in tongues. Both of the pastors were praying. I'm just sitting there crying. And I told my friend, if I was sitting in the back middle, towards the middle where originally we were going to sit, there was no way that the pastors and both of the girls would have been able to approach me the way they did.
Right.
But because I was sitting in the corner, they were all able to surround me.
Wow.
So I told her, I was like, I was meant to sit there for a reason.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love your faith in the Lord in this right now too. And so tell me, track for all of us here, help us understand were you a believer before? Obviously this has transformed your mindset, your belief, not only in the Lord, but like what he can do. So help us kind of follow that trajectory. Did you grow up believing in God? Was that not a thing? Where was that for you in the midst of just your journey?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents always we were always going to church on Sundays.
Okay.
But I would say I was just kind of going just because they would force me to go. And then as a little kid, you just want to play, watch movies.
Right.
So I never wanted to go as a little kid because I'm like, I don't understand church. I just want to stay home and play with my dolls. So my parents would force me to go with them on Sundays. When I started getting a little bit older and I was able to stay home alone, sometimes I wouldn't go to church with them, because at that point I just wasn't really into my faith. I would say it wasn't until my anxiety started getting worse. I started getting I was getting hospitalized, and all of these things just started happening back to back. And I was like, okay, I need to do something about this.
Something's not working.
Something's not working. I've been going to therapy sessions. They wanted to put me on medication, but I know these issues would still be there behind the medication. And at that point I was like, if therapy can't do this, if I can't do this on my own, the only one that can help me is God. He's the ultimate healer, the ultimate therapist, the ultimate physician. When I felt like I was just stuck and never going to get better, I knew that I had to turn to him. And I feel like I had this anxiety for a reason to make me turn to him. Otherwise, I was being very stubborn and I wasn't turning to him. I was like, what do I need to do? And I needed to go to him.
Wow, it sounds like you hit this moment of full surrender. Was that when you were in the hospital, or was that just over time you had multiple just moments of, I can't do this on my own?
Yeah, I would say I had definitely multiple moments. There was a moment too when I was younger. I remember I went swimming with a friend, and I didn't know how to swim at that time. I was a little girl. And I remember I was swimming and my friend had told me, oh, let's go swimming. We can go like in the deeper end. If you're drowning or if you feel like you can't swim, I can pull you out. So I ended up going with her, and it got to the point where I was pretty much drowning. I was underwater. I think it was like the 6 or the 7 feet deep pool. And at that point, I think I was in elementary school. So I was pretty much drowning. Nobody could see me under the pool. And I was towards the middle, and I wasn't able to go towards like the 3 feet, the 4 feet to try to get out. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, this is the end. I'm going to just drown here because I don't know how to swim. I remember raising my hands up in the air. Nobody could see me because the water was above my hands. And I was like, okay. And at that point, I just stood there and I'm just like, I'm just going to accept it. They're going to eventually find me at the bottom of the pool. And then out of nowhere, I felt like a little tug. And I just remember climbing up because there was like stairs on the side of the pool. And I remember climbing out and just coughing. And I asked my friend, I was like, did you see me? And she's like, no, I was looking for you. I thought you got up and went to the restroom. And I was like, I was drowning in the pool on the bottom. And then she asked me, she's like, how did you get out? I was like, I don't know. I just, out of nowhere, I felt the stairs and I climbed up.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And you were how old? You were in elementary school?
I was in like elementary school. I think that's probably at that point, I remember thinking very clearly, I was like, it was an angel, it was God, because I don't know how to swim. And I remember just standing there. I was like, I'm just going to give up.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, so God, the Lord's been real for you and tangible in your life, even as a little girl. Wow. But then you said it's, really was having those anxiety moments and attacks that really brought, it sounds kind of like a rock bottom, honestly. You hear people talk about that in different parts of their stories. And I mean, it does sound like that is kind of what happened for you, that it was, a rock bottom moment that really turned things around for you as well. And, obviously, the Lord can do anything. So that's what we're here redefining. So I love that you are being open about your story and you're sharing that with so many men and women, because there's so many people that go through the same thing, and that's a lie that you can believe you're alone in this and you're not. And so I just love that so much. How did it change, just the last couple of years specifically? How did that really change how you view yourself?
I would say it made a really big change.
Yeah.
So growing up, I was always like very shy and quiet and reserved. And as I started getting more into my faith, I started attending more retreats with my mom. And very recently, I went to 2 women's retreats. And I was told by a pastor that he sees me helping women and he sees me talking to an audience. He's like, I'm not exactly sure what the setting is, but that's what I see for you. And I just remember thinking, like, helping women, how when I can't even help myself?
Wow.
And when I went to a women's retreat pretty recently, there was this woman, she just randomly came up to me and she's like, can I hold your hands and pray? So I was like, yeah, go for it. So she held my hands and she started praying and she started crying. She said her mother had passed away 2 days ago. And then she's like, I just felt like a bond with you. She's like, I felt like I could approach you and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And she was crying and I gave her a hug and we ended up exchanging numbers. And she's like, thank you so much for hearing me out, like letting me pray. And I have no idea who she was, but she told me that she felt that she needed to go up to me and just kind of have that embrace and that connection. And then like after that, I went to another women's retreat. And I went by myself. I didn't know anybody at that point. I mean, I'm pretty much used to going to events by myself now. And this other woman, she sat down right next to me. She introduced herself. And then she started being very vulnerable. She mentioned how all of her family have passed away from cancer. She had lost 2 babies. She mentioned how she was by herself and she's barely getting in this journey with God. And she also told me the same thing. She's like, I felt like you're very approachable. You looked very nice. And I just felt like I could talk to you. So she also came up to me. We exchanged numbers as well. I invited her to an upcoming women's Bible study that I'm going to be attending for next month. And I told her, I was like, I think we should go. I think this community would be good for you because she doesn't have family anymore since they all passed away and she's by herself.
Amazing.
So I felt like she needs that.
I love that. And we're going to dive into a little bit of that more right when we come back here on Redefining Possible with Diana Orozco. Welcome back to Redefining Possible. I'm your host, Peyton Hoffman. And with me today is our continuing discussion with Diana Orozco. Before the break, we were talking about how healing from anxiety, and obviously that is an ongoing journey for everyone that struggles with this, but how that healing for you has really also opened up many doors to your life being used to help other women. You gave a couple of examples before the break, but is there anything else you wanted to share around that? Because I love that. I think that's just so encouraging for men and women that are watching this, that, hey, my story can actually be used to help other people.
Yeah, so this is actually funny because this just happened like 2 days ago.
Oh, good. It's fresh.
But over the
I love
weekend.
it.
Yeah, it just happened. So there was an event in LA and it was like a Christian walk. So it was just a bunch of women getting together and then just walking across the beach. So I went with my best friend at that time. And this other woman also approached us. So she came by herself. So like, you can join us so you don't have to be by yourself. And she was talking to us and we were just talking about our journeys and everything. And then she had mentioned how she wanted to do like a career change. And she mentioned the specific career that she liked that my brother and my sister both happened to be involved in.
Oh, wow.
So I brought it up to her. And then towards the end, when the event was over, when she was about to head out, I felt this need to approach her. So I did, and I told her, I was like, hey, just before you leave, if you have any questions like on this specific career, resources, whatever you need, let me know, and I can reach out to my brother or my sister and they can help you out. And then she told me, she's like, it's funny that you mentioned that. She's like, because I was praying to God that if I'm supposed to be getting this career change, give me like the resources and the help that I need.
Oh my goodness.
And she was like, you just offered that to me. And she's like, that was a confirmation that I needed for the career change. And I was just like, God works in such mysterious ways. Like, what are the odds?
Well, and he used you to be the answer to someone else's prayer, which he does so often. He uses us to answer other people's prayers all the time. And I think that's such a beautiful encouragement of your faith as well in that moment, to realize like, oh, actually, I'm the answer to this woman's prayer right now. Like, the Lord is using me to answer her prayer and meet a very tangible need that she had as well. So I love that. As you've gone on this whole journey, and as your social media has changed, you're still posting beauty things though. So let's talk about just how your concept of beauty for women has changed as you've gone through this.
Yeah, so I'm still doing a little bit of beauty, and then I'm trying to kind of integrate it also with just overall mindset and faith, posting a little bit of everything. That way people just don't think that it's just all about beauty, that I have this perceived life when it's not just about that. So I just want to post a little bit more motivation, show my journey, show my growth. That way people can also kind of like grow with me.
Yeah.
So they can see that it's not just, that I'm not living this perfect lifestyle.
Has it changed how you define what's beautiful?
Definitely, in multiple ways. I feel like it's more of, like, everybody has their own definition of beauty. And it's just about more of how you feel too. It's not always the outside, which I feel like a lot of people, and maybe on social media, everybody pays attention to the outside, your makeup, your hair, expensive clothes, living this luxurious lifestyle.
And we do live in Los Angeles here,
Exactly.
or close to Los Angeles. So that does feed into that quite a bit as well. But yeah, no, go ahead. So you were saying that that has changed for you.
Yeah. So I'm trying to kind of ease out from that type of persona.
Wow. And have you noticed people accepting that? I know sometimes when we make these big changes, I had another guest on that made changes similar to this, but in music. And she was saying that when she started stepping into more of faith-based music, or even just writing her own music, her audience changed completely. People kind of rejected that. But then she also had new people that were saying, oh, wait, this is different. I mean, who you are is changing. So have you noticed a perceived shift in that? And if so, how has that affected you?
Yeah, I have seen more of like a little bit of a shift.
Okay.
I have seen more people that are more like into their faith, following me, asking questions. I have had even like my regular audience, they'll message me and then they'll tell me how inspiring it is. I do post a lot like for the gym, for example. So a lot of people would tell me, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much, because of you. Like, I started going to the gym, I started seeking therapy. So I feel like that change is slowly happening, and I feel like I'm kind of integrating it in a way. It's not just like black and white. There's just a change all of a sudden. It's
not like a turning over, a complete shift. Yeah. Well, and I love that, because you're just saying, here's more of who I am. Whereas before it can just be the external, and it can just be, the physical, but actually letting people see, well, I'm a whole person, and here's more of an open window into my life and who I am. And like you said, people can think everything is fine, and in the background you're like, I'm a real person with real struggles. And I just love the authenticity of that, and I love it's bravery to share that. So I just love that, Diana. I love that, you're stepping into more courage, and you're stepping into more bravery by being vulnerable. And I think that that's just really beautiful, and really is going to encourage so many other people as well with that vulnerability. I mean, are you seeing people like impact other friendships? I know you've got a great community, but are you seeing that impact friendships and people even around you?
Yeah, I've been taking a look more of like my inner circle of friends, and I've been kind of shifting away from certain people, getting closer to other people. And when I go to community events, or even just personal relationships with friends and family, I noticed like the conversations shift a little more towards like their mental health, opening up to faith in God if they're open to it and when
Okay.
they're open to it, because I feel like everybody kind of has their own pace and their own timing. I don't want to push anything on anyone either, but I noticed that a lot of my friends and family, they know my struggle with anxiety. But when I open up to them about how I'm changing, the things that I'm doing, my courage, and they're all like, this isn't the Diana I used to know. Like, she's really changing, she's healing, she's getting better. And they start thinking like, hey, I want that for myself too. Or maybe they think, you know what, sometimes I do struggle with X, Y, and Z, but maybe they haven't opened up to it.
Wow.
So I feel like they're also reevaluating themselves. And I've had friends tell me, just talking to you, being around you, I feel more motivated to do certain goals that maybe I've just kind of left behind, maybe whether it's fear or maybe just like neglect or for any reason. I feel like having these conversations with them and them seeing my journey is kind of motivating themselves to do better. And that's why I like to share my story and be a little bit more vulnerable, even though it can be a little bit scary to put yourself out there.
Yeah. And it can be scary. And I just love the, what you're touching on about family and friends, just saying, oh, it's encouraging them to go deeper and encouraging them to kind of reevaluate. Honestly, it sounds like reevaluate areas of their lives. And just what you're saying right now is kind of a shifting of relationships or it sounds like people that are impacting your life. I think that's going to impact a lot of people that are watching and listening to that. Can you unpack that a little bit more, just how that has started to shift for you and kind of what you have been made aware of, maybe?
Yeah, I always
without naming some specific people. We're not here to do that, but yeah.
I always go back to like what the pastor told me when he's like, I see you helping women. I see you talking to an audience at some point in my life. And I go back and I think of like the events that I've went to, the retreats that I've gone to where they have speakers and they give their testimony. And I've thought of myself like, I want to do that one day. I want to go up to an audience and share my testimony because I feel like it can relate to a lot of people. And maybe one day they'll share their testimony because I feel like everybody has their own testimony and maybe it's still in the process of being written. But I feel like we face certain battles to turn it for the better and maybe for us to share with others who are also going through something similar. So I've been noticing that shift, definitely.
Yeah. Well, in the relationships, the people that you said are kind of starting to shift out of your life, what has been the big like light bulb moment, I guess, for you? Because it sounds like there's some people that were maybe in your life or inner circle that maybe shouldn't be any longer. What has been that transition for you? Because I think that's going to touch a lot of people.
Yeah, that's definitely a really hard thing.
Yeah.
Especially because some of these people, I've known them for a really long time. And I don't want to say, that they're bad people per se, but maybe just not in like the same journey as I am, maybe in a way that can't help me the way that I'm trying to grow.
Yeah.
Just kind of slowly cutting off that distance. If they want to go do something, maybe like going to a bar or going to a club, that's not something that I personally want to do. So I just don't put myself in a situation where I feel isn't going to benefit me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I think back to my past, if I was ever put in a situation that might drain me in any of those aspects, it would just trigger anxiety or it would trigger panic or my body just wouldn't feel good. The next day I'll wake up tired and just anxious.
So you're identifying the people that are associated with triggers in your life as well. I think that's massive for so many people that are in a place of where they struggle with anxiety or panic disorder, where they're saying it's not just a situation, sometimes it can be a person. And I think just you being able to recognize that and step back and say, okay, kind of how can I protect my space? How can I protect my emotional health, my mental health, without being isolating, but also what's healthy for you to be around. And let's unpack that a little bit more. I love that. And I just think so many people are going to resonate with that. Right back, when we come back, we're going to be back here with Diana Orozco here on Redefining Possible. Welcome back to Redefining Possible. I'm your host, Peyton Hoffman, here today with Diana Orozco. And right before our commercial break, we were talking a bit just about how going through and healing from anxiety has really impacted your relationships, the people that you're around, the people that speak into your life, and just this healing journey overall, really, for you. It's how it's impacted your view of yourself as well. Let's talk a little bit more just about community. Did you have community before? If so, what was that like? I know you mentioned to me, off camera, just how isolating suffering from anxiety can feel. So maybe for those who are suffering from this, or those who have family members or friends that are suffering, what is that like, and how does the importance of community really play into your healing?
Yeah, so when I was struggling with the anxiety, I would say I didn't really have community. I was very just self-isolated, very reserved. And I just had this, like, if I talk to somebody about my anxiety, they're just gonna maybe shove it off like it's not a big deal. Or they're gonna be like, oh, just don't think about it. Just be happy. Just don't think about it.
Wow.
But it's not really possible.
Yeah.
And I've tried dealing with the anxiety by myself for a really long time. And then that's when I started trying to add the gym, trying to add the therapy. And I'm like, yeah, those are helpful, but it's missing that community. I still feel like I'm by myself. So that's when I was like, I need to add that positive community. I started going to these events, adding more girls to my inner circle, having more group chats, talking to specific people,
Love it.
Going to church, and just putting myself more out there. And that's when I noticed my community is slowly starting to build up into something so positive, just full of so much faith, so much prayer. When I would talk to these women, if I'm going through something, then they'll just kind of stop me, be like, okay, let's pray about it. Let's talk about this, let's talk about that. And it just changed my mindset overall. And it just has me, when I think about, friends like that, it just has me feeling like I'm not alone, like I can get out of this. And I do feel a really big change. I would say, my anxiety is always going to be there, but the way that I handle it and the way it's going to affect me, it's not going to be like how it was before.
Wow. And that's amazing just to have that revelation and know this is something that while you're still on your healing journey, it's something that you have, it sounds like you just have more tools, and you have certainly, the Lord on your side, and you've also got a lot of wonderful, positive women on your side. And you spoke to me earlier about just the importance of getting outside and, going to the gym, but also I think nature was something that we really talked about, just getting out in nature. Has that been transformative for you as well?
Yeah, I've been going out to the beach more. I've also been with my friends. We've been going to kind of like these more isolated little cabins. We went somewhere where there was like a bunch of horses and there was llamas and everything. So just being out in nature, being away from the city life, all the noise, taking some time off from work if you're able to, I think is also very helpful.
Rest is very important, and we are not a people and a society that rests well. So that is, for everyone's health, that is massive. And for you, it sounds like you found rest in nature as well, and just change of scenery and people, which is massive and key for, I think, everybody.
Yeah, I noticed because especially with people that are struggling with anxiety or maybe panic, you feel like your life is constantly just on the go. You have to do this and you have to do that. For me, sometimes I would feel like I have this big checklist of things that I need to get done. And when I was seeing a therapist at that time, she would tell me, you need to just sit down, just stop, do some meditation, do some breath work. I got an app for meditation. Even meditating for 5 minutes was very hard for me. I just felt like it was boring. When I would sit down, for 5 minutes and just try to close my eyes and meditate and do breath work, I was just like, I need these 5 minutes to go by because I need to do this, I need to do that. I was like, no, I'm not doing this correctly. And then when I would go out in nature, it was easier to kind of put that side of my life away and just being there for myself, take some time and just rest and just slow down.
Wow. How has going through all of this and really and healing in this journey transformed your view of what's possible for your life?
It showed me that it is not possible without God, for sure, because I've tried to do it without him and it just did not get me far. So I feel like if I continue doing what I'm doing, what the pastor said, helping women, and I feel like he has a lot more planned for me. And I just want to help out more people because I wish that I would have had that help growing up.
Wow.
So that's what I hope for.
I love that. And did you have, vision for that a couple of years ago, or is this something that's just brand new where
Oh,
your eyes are opening?
no, definitely not. This whole time I was like, well, I'm just going to be this shy and quiet girl. I'm just going to be probably just in my room and just suffering with anxiety forever. And the Lord has put me out in ways where I never thought I would be out there by myself, going to LA, doing these trips, meeting all these other women. It's like I'm definitely not the same person as before, which I'm really thankful for.
Gosh, I love that so much. And for folks that are, men or women, I know your heart really is for women's healing and women's health, but for men and women that might be watching this or are going through this, what would be your advice for someone who is suffering from anxiety in the way that you had suffered? And what would be your advice? Second question, what would be your advice for someone who maybe has a family member or a good friend? Like what would be the advice for somebody going through this? And then how best can family members and friends support people that are going through this?
I would definitely say for anybody struggling with anxiety and depression or any type of mental health disorder, I think therapy is definitely good. It can give you some tools that are helpful, such as the meditation and the breath work. And there might be something that you're missing that you're not aware of that the therapist can help you bring that up. So I feel like that's always really good. And then with anybody with family members or for friends, I would say being supportive. It's not always easy to put yourself in somebody's shoes if you're not necessarily going through the same thing, but encouraging that person to kind of go out there, put themselves out there. I feel like community is very, very big. If somebody is willing to have faith and put God inside, I would say doing something within the church, whether it's like a Bible study or a men's or a women's focused retreat or anything. I think that's very helpful because in my opinion, when you find people there, those are going to be very genuine and authentic people that are going to want nothing but the best for you. And you might not even know it, but they're likely suffering from the same thing as you, so they're going to be able to relate.
Wow, I love that. And you talked about just if you're a family member or a friend supporting the person that's going through this and encouraging them. Was there a specific person or maybe a couple of people that really encouraged you?
I would say my parents.
Love that.
So when they would go to church, if they announce like, oh, there's a retreat or there's something coming up, they would bring home the paper and they'd be like, oh, here, this was given out at church today if you're interested. Multiple times I did deny it. I was like, oh no, I'm busy. I'm not going to do it. But then eventually I was like, okay, let me just try it.
Wow. And so I love that I did not expect you to have that answer. So I love that so much that you're like, my parents, and they just brought me sheets of paper to sign up for. And then for folks who may be in, a close friendship with somebody as well that's in this, and, what's the best way to kind of walk alongside someone? You said, encourage them, but is there something maybe tactical that, really specific that you could do as somebody who is walking alongside a friend or maybe a wife or husband with this, a family member with this, how best to help them kind of lean into community and support? I know it's just something that, especially if people feel like they don't have that.
I would even encourage that family member or friend to even attend with this person. Say it's like a retreat or a Bible study or anything or a community event. I would encourage that person to go as well. It's also going to benefit them. They might also end up liking it, especially if somebody is suffering with so much mental health. They're probably not going to want to go to this by themselves or they're nervous or anything. But having somebody else that go with you, I feel like it's going to be very encouraging, and it's also going to show that person, hey, my family member or my friend cares so much about me, they also want to go with me, kind of push me there.
I love that. Now, what's next for you? I mean, you're helping women, you are doing amazing things. What is on the horizon for Diana?
Yeah, so right now I'm in the process of writing a book. I just felt it really heavy to write a book, put out more details. So I will be including a lot more details that we talked about today. I felt it very heavy on my heart. I've had a lot of women tell me, you have a strong testimony, you need to put yourself out there. So I'm in the process of doing that. And then I hope to maybe speak out at conferences or do maybe some more big things in the future. But I'm open to anything that the Lord puts in my path because I know that He's going to put it there for my benefit. And also, I hope to benefit others.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh, Diana, thank you so much for coming today. It's just been such a treasure to have you, and I adore you. So I'm just so grateful that you spent the time today to come on Redefining Possible and just share pieces of your story with the men and women that are watching and listening. I just know this is going to encourage so many people. And it's just such a common story. So I just thank you so much again, my dear. I love having you here, and we'll have to have you back after the book launches.
Yes.
So yes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Redefining Possible. I'm your host again, Peyton Hoffman, and I've loved having this story time today with Diana Orozco. What happens when the thing you've barely dared to dream for actually comes true? How does it change you when what you've been believing for and almost given up hope on finally becomes reality? The Redefining Possible podcast spotlights guests with stories of insurmountable odds who have witnessed the impossible become possible with God.